What's going on, guys? It's GBP baby. Welcome back to another video. I hope everybody's doing well, and it has been a long time, so apologies for the lack of uploads. I've been extremely busy, but I hope everything's good on your end. So let's dive straight into things. We're going to be starting on the monthly. We have just started the month of June, which is exciting, and then you can see that May was quite interesting in terms of how we traded up, and we kind of ended on a little bit of a low. Now if we look at the weekly in June, you can see the price behavior. There was a few weeks in June which I was happy with. I believe it was this week and this week, that was quite a nice delivery. And then last week I was pretty much inactive. But moving into the month of June, I am looking for a continuation to the downside, and I do have my eyes pretty strongly set on this fair value gap right here. Now we have already tapped into it with a wick. However, I'm looking for us to basically fill it. So I'd like to see if we can get a continuation to the downside moving into June. And then now that we have this large wick from May, we can actually split this into quarters, and that should be able to give us a range as to the highest I'd expect price to trade. So I'm going to mark out the 25% level and the 50% level. 25% level ideally is going to be the highest we see this month trade, June trade. So we'll get that marked out like so. Make that blue. Make that red. Drop that to 16. And then, like I said, we're looking to see if we can actually, get some volume inside of here, because although we've wicked down here, that's not enough volume for me. I'd like to think that price will continue to want to continue to draw down into that. So let's go down to the weekly, and you can see it's not the cleanest, but I do like the way that price has already traded into this wick, and then we had this down week last week, so that's quite interesting. I'm now looking for the high of last week to get taken, and us to start trading into this range between this low and this close. Now this is what we call an implied fair value gap, so there is a level of imbalance between there, but more importantly, I'm just looking for this as a buy side target first. So I'd like to think that we can see this get ran maybe later this week. Let's go to the daily, and you can see we are in quite a bit of a consolidation, which isn't the cleanest. This looks quite disgusting, especially after seeing this. Because I didn't post last week, I didn't realize how much of a massive gap we had here. Not the nicest at all, but between this close and this open, there's a massive gap floating there, which is also at our 25% level. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to delineate that, because technically that's a bearish fair value gap. So if price does manage to trade up into that, which would be interesting, I'd expect price to want to turn around with inside of it to then send price lower. But generally speaking, I'm looking for this buy side liquidity pool to be traded to, and then after that, I'd like to think that price can continue to roll over and downwards into this monthly, taking out these lows. So I hope that all makes sense. We will go to the 4 hour. You can see we're in very heavy consolidation. It looks like we've been in consolidation since, since we started this week. Well, it is still Monday, so I'll give it a break, but nonetheless, moving into Tuesday, I want to see us trade higher, take out this high. We've got some relatively equal highs up here. Again, this is an important gap that we know there's volume. There's also a fair value gap, lack of volume. There's also a fair value gap in the premium up here as well as a nice target, and you can see there's another buy side high right here. So moving into tomorrow, I'd like to think that price can roll over, especially if this breaker, so we've got a low high, lower low, and then a level of displacement to an extent. It's not the cleanest, and I don't really want to use this as the be all or end all, but I'm looking at the way price is treating this level more specifically, and so long as price stays above this, I'm happy to remain bullish, and that price should be able to make it into that buy side liquidity pool and then rally into this range up here. So I hope that all makes sense. Let's go down to the 1 hour. We'll take a closer look. You'll see again engineering and liquidity above this buy side. I really want to see these get taken, especially if price manages to keep this bullish order block that we just traded to intact. And then again, we've got a gap here which is only delivered on the downside, so that means it'll be interesting to see if price can tap into it later on this week. So right now my eyes are just focused on this premium. I'm looking for dollar to trade higher. I don't really want to see these lows get taken until later in the week, if at all. So we are going to go into GBP USD. Wow, it's been a while since I've been in these charts. We'll go to the monthly, and again you can see very interesting month, closed higher, just about taking out this buy side liquidity. Oh no, we haven't even tapped into it yet, so I'm still looking for price to eventually run that buy side, but not yet. Obviously if we're expecting a potential rally on dollar, we want to see if pound is able to drop to some extent, and the range that I'm really focusing on is between this high right here and then this low right here. So it'll be interesting to see if price can trade downwards into that range. Let's go to the weekly, and you'll see we had some nice displacement today on Monday. Oh no, that was Monday last week. Oh, this is the weekly, sorry. We had some displacement a few weeks back to the upside, finding a level of support, but again, I wouldn't be surprised if price wanted to potentially tap down into this range, and voila, you can see our PD array right there, which is a weekly fair value gap. So it'll be interesting to see if price can tap down into that, and then potentially think about running this buy side liquidity pool, and maybe into this premium, which I've spoke about before. We'll go to the daily. Again, heavy consolidation, not the cleanest of price action, but ideally we can get some kind of drop before, due to swing when price trades against the trend, and then it'll use this as a point of accumulation to then trade higher. We do have a breaker to an extent. We've got lows, low, high, lower, low displacement. So then we're looking at these up close candles as points in whereby we expect price to be sensitive and be able to use this like a springboard, so to speak. So yeah, tomorrow will be more telling, but it'd be nice if price does start to drop off tomorrow, whether it's London session or whatever. That will be very supportive of my bias, and I'll be pretty happy with that. And we do have PPI etc. on Wednesday, so it'd be nice if that could set up in time for that. But yeah, it's very interesting to see this high there, so if price can tap into that, that would be lovely. So that's going to be everything on pound. I hope that will make sense. But similar to dollar, I want to see rally, and then on pound I want to see if it can drop off a little bit and then accumulate below these lows. Any lower than this range, I'll be a little bit suspicious, especially the way I'm looking at this range, this high to this low more specifically. Any lower than that, and I'll be suspicious, as in I don't really want to trade it. But if we find support at that level, I'd be happy to trade it, and then look for longs. I'm expecting off the back of it, so long as dollar's in support of that movement. But so to speak, yeah, I'm paying close attention to this, and if price does manage to respect it, we'll go into more in depth later this week. So make sure to turn on post notifications. But the fact that we've taken out these lows below here, this will explain. I'll explain this at a later point, so long as it gets respected. If it doesn't, whole different story. But this is what's given me that bias, is what I'm saying, and we'll talk about that at a later point. So to finish up, we're going to go on Euro USD as per usual. We'll start here on the weekly. Actually, we'll start on the monthly because it's a new month and I do need to do a proper monthly review, but bear with me, guys. So you can see we've had quite an interesting so to speak. You can see that we've tapped into the 25% level and we're kind of just messing about. I don't like this kind of typical consolidation, but you can see the same on dollar, which is interesting. But nonetheless, I'm now looking at this long wick that was created last month. I'm going to be splitting it into quarters. When you have long wicks like this, it's best to split it into quarters, but mainly it's that 25% level I have my eyes on. I doubt price is going to go to the 50% level just because I believe it doesn't need to. So that 25% level is what I'm paying close attention to. Let's go to the weekly, and you can see that lines up perfectly with a bullish order block and a large wick again. So we could split that wick up, but there's no need. But there is an implied fair value gap between this high and this close, as in there's only upside delivery up here and then up here. So it'd be nice to see if price can potentially trade down into that. And then as we drop down to lower time frames, you can see it's very messy. But we do have a breaker, last up close before the down move, that caused this movement up here. We haven't quite ran out this high yet, which isn't ideal, which is why I wouldn't be surprised if we stayed in this consolidation for a little bit. But again, I'm looking at the way that this wick on 29th of May took out this low. As far as I'm concerned, price shouldn't need to come back down here. The lowest I'd want to see would be this range, which I spoke about. So let's go to the 4 hours, see if there's anything that can help us. And you can see there's a nice low below here as potential sell stops in line with dollar potentially rallying. So we'll mark that out as sell side liquidity. And then I'll be looking at this bullish order block right here to tap into, as in I'd want to see that sensitive to price. So if price can get down here, that should be a nice run. And then once it taps into it, depending on where we are in the week, I'd want to see a reversal on the back of it. And then just price starts to trade on higher. And I'll go where? I'd start looking for this high as its next target. But I do believe that we are, so long as we see dollar continue to rally into buy side, then there's no reason that the euro won't struggle to get down, accumulate some more stops, and then trade on higher and run our buy stops above here, which is my ultimate target. But you just need to understand that when I'm looking at price, I'm looking at the Judas swing, as in I'm anticipating some form of drop in the opposite direction to the main expected expansion before we get there. And because of that, I need to allow for that, and I need to look where it could be. And this would be one of those points, especially because of this, gap. We've got a gap between this high and this low. Beautiful fair value gap right there. So there's a reason as to why price may want to dwindle down there. Another thing to take note of though is that because of how deep it is, if we look at the range between this low and this high, this is in the discount. So if price does manage to make it down into this discount, it'll probably struggle to get out of it without any high impact news. So we do need to take that into consideration. But as soon as it gets, basically you can see how we're tapping into the 75% level a few times, and I think the same is pretty much happening on dollar, except obviously it's a much more interesting range. But I'm saying we're finding support on this 25% level, so I'm expecting us to go from discount to premium, which is why I've got my eyes set up here. But we'll talk more on this later in this week. Don't forget to drop a like, drop a comment, smash subscribe. Join me over on Discord. All the links are in the description, and I'm glad to be back. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Catch you tomorrow. Peace.